Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for clicking on this Rank the Movies video. We're in week 3, talking about WWE Studios films. We've covered The Condemned. We covered The Condemned 2. We covered 12 rounds 2, and 12 rounds 3. So far, we've watched 2 good movies and 3 pieces of crap. So this week, we're going to talk about one of the only series in WWE Studios where the same wrestler performs in every movie. Now, currently, Mike the Mizarian holds this record for being in the most films as the same character in the Marine franchise, but there are 2 entries in that where he's not the main character. The first one where it's John Cena, and the second one where it's Ted DiBiase. The only man to appear in every part of a franchise produced by WWE Studios is the Big Red Monster himself, Kane. That's right, we're talking about See No Evil and See No Evil 2. So yeah, this is the 3rd film produced by WWE Studios, and the first produced that did not star The Rock. They had produced The Rundown and Walking Tall before the See No Evil films, or the first See No Evil film, and that is when Kane stepped in. So Kane is the 2nd actor from WWE, and he would only appear in 3 movies, these 2 and one other one. The title of it slips my mind at this exact second. Alright, so See No Evil, let's jump right in with the original one. This was a theatrically released movie. Its sequel, much like all WWE Studios sequels, was direct-to-video. Basically, you open up with a police raid on the home of Jacob Goodnight. He is called the God's Hand Killer. He has been kidnapping people, killing them, and gouging out their eyes. The cops find Jacob. One of them is immediately slain by old Jacob. The other one gets one of his arms chopped off and then shoots Jacob in the head. In the head! There's an entry wound and an exit wound. Shoots him in the head. We now jump forward a few years. That cop now works as a corrections officer. He has a fake hand and is setting up a trip for 4 male youth offenders and 4 female youth offenders to get out of county and go clean up an old hotel. What could go wrong? There's also a female guidance counselor, I guess, who's with the girls. She's not a corrections officer. She's just there. They go to the hotel where they meet a member of the historical society who set up this program to refurbish the hotel. They begin their work. Some creepy things happen. Someone's watching them. It's Jacob. They really don't hide the fact that it's Jacob, who still has a hole in the back of his head that apparently never heals. And it's got maggots and other things you would not expect a human would want in the back of their head. Jacob begins watching, and he sees one of the female youthies has a bunch of religious tattoos on them, crosses and whatnot on their back, on their arm, and he wants her. So he captures her and takes her to his lair. He then begins killing everyone else. I would go into these characters, but they are so pointless, it's not worth going into who they are. Jacob just begins a slaughter of all of these characters, including the cop that shot him in the head, who, once it's realized it is Jacob Goodnight who is the murderer, is swiftly killed. So yeah, that entire opening setup to this moment is, it's almost unnecessary. You could have told this story just by having Jacob hiding out in this old hotel and people coming to clean it, and then him starting to kill them. You could have told the story. You didn't need the cop. The cop was unnecessary. And the fact that he just dies, it's not like he gets into a fight with Jacob, and, Jacob overpowers him, and he gives his life away to the kids. Literally, he realizes that Jacob Goodnight is the killer, walks out of a room into the hallway, and then gets hooked in the face, and that's it. That's the end of that character. So the only character that has any real build to who they are is swiftly killed once they realize, oh, we have a connection. As we progress, people are dying left and right. Anytime someone makes a little progression in their story, like the female attendant. You know, she was proposed to by her boyfriend. She didn't say yes, but she decides while riding an elevator that I guess she says yes, so she chinks the engagement ring off of her right hand and puts it on her left hand. I'm doing it backwards. Puts it on her right hand, and then is swiftly killed by Jacob. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be heart-wrenching, but it's not. You just don't care. Like, why? What's the point? Like, if you're not building it, what's the point of murdering this character? It's just a person dying. And in a horror movie, at some point you need to care about at least one or two of these people enough to actually give a damn when they die. You find out that the old woman from the Historical Society is Jacob's mother, and she has beaten him and taught him to see the sins of people, which is why he rips out everyone's eyes, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and soul! But he wants... she is demanding Jacob kill the girl with the religious symbols on her because she is just as sinful as everyone else. Jacob, on the other hand, wants to rape her. He starts, like, masturbating under his clothing. Like, it's really weird. Like, I don't remember these parts of this movie. It wasn't until I rewatched it I went, oh, this is really creepy. Not even scary, just, like, weird. Like, what the hell? You did not need these parts of the story. Jacob kills his mom. The three remaining teens, yeah, there are three. There are three people who survived this movie. Out of the 11 that entered the building, the old woman, the 2 adults, and the 8 kids. 3 of them survive. They survive by throwing Jacob out a window. He gets his eye gouged out by a pole. He falls, and you actually see a spike penetrate his heart to make sure you know he is dead. As the audience, you know he is dead. And yes, I realize I still have to talk about the sequel, so how the crap can he be dead? How can you know he's dead if there's a sequel? Well, we'll get to that in a second. As far as horror movies go, it's not the worst horror movie in the world. It's not one of those like, oh my lord, we need to watch this one over and over again. I can't wait to see Glenn Jacob in some See No Evil. It's like, no, it's a pretty average horror movie. It's got 2 not horrible kills in it. One of them is a guy's trying to lower a girl out of a window to safety. Jacob she struggles as Jacob pulls her up because he's killed the guy. She gets caught hanging upside down, and he just drops her. She goes through a glass roof of an atrium, breaks her arm, and is then devoured by dogs. And her backstory, the little backstory you get, is that she was in juvie for releasing animals from a animal shelter who were going to be euthanized. So she let them loose. They're now starving on the streets, and they eat her. I've watched this movie a couple of times, and it's the first time I've made all those connections to get the irony of her death. And it's like, oh, it's ironic. They did not push that hard enough to make sure you got it on that initial view. He also kills a girl by shoving a cell phone down her throat. And that's just a fun kill, because, sometimes you just want to shove a cell phone down someone's throat. But overall, if you like horror movies, it's not a great horror movie. It's average, it's middle line at best. Jason, Freddy, Michael, Chucky, the Leprechaun, these are all better horror antagonists. See No Evil, it's not terrible. But it definitely started, this really was part of that trend of kind of midline WWE Studio films. Though I like The Condemned and 12 Rounds 3, those are definitely more outliers. And See No Evil is much closer. Not so much the hatred I have for some of the other ones that I've reviewed, but it's just not as good. This also had a weird WWE storyline with it, where the date of the movie's release was somehow causing problems with Kane, and I don't even remember. I think the conclusion was another Kane shows up, and it's ridiculous. But that's See No Evil. That was followed a few years later. I'm not actually sure how many. 2006, 2014, so almost a decade later, 8 years later, which is almost a decade, they released See No Evil 2. So Jacob Goodnight returns to slaughter some more. Now, this movie literally stars no one you would recognize. Like, there is not a single name worth mentioning from this movie. This one stars horror icons Danielle Harris from Halloween 4, 5, and the Rob Zombie Halloween, and Catherine Isabel from Ginger Snaps, and they've done a lot of other horror movies as well. Both of them are pretty recognizable women in the horror genre. So we went from no recognizable actors or actresses outside of Kane to 2 recognizable actresses for the genre plus your wrestler. So what does this movie made 8 years after the original? How does it connect? Well, it's now a few hours after the end of this movie. I love it when they do it. You have Danielle Harris works as a morgue attendant with 2 other co-workers, and the dead bodies from the hotel massacre are being sent to them. So they're going to be doing their autopsies, including that of Jacob Goodnight. I'm going to pause right there and go into a rant, because there is something I really hate in horror movies. It's a trope of doing something in the morgue. Whether it's the whole story is told out in the morgue, just the opening scenes are told out in the morgue, where it's a way to connect movie A to movie B by having the victims being brought into the morgue, and then the killer still lives. They did it in Friday the 13th Part 4, and I've seen it a couple other times, where it's, it's this weird scene, and they do the same thing in every version. They go, oh, we're bringing in all this, and they get the number of corpses right. Like in See No Evil, 9 people die, including Jacob Goodnight. So they say, oh, we have 9 corpses coming. You see 1 of those 9 corpses. 1. You see, 2, I guess. You see Jacob's, and he finds his mother's. And that's it. The other 8 corpses are not accounted for. 7 corpses aren't accounted for in any way, shape, or form. You're telling me you couldn't get one of the nameless actors or actresses who died in this movie, who, I missed a point of what the fuck in this movie. I'm sorry, I'm gonna backtrack to See No Evil. I should have made notes. I just watched these movies, literally I just finished the second one, and now I'm doing this review. The mother brought all these people here to get revenge on the cop that died meaninglessly in the middle of the movie. Yeah, that's the entire reason they are all there, is for Jacob to get revenge on the cop. Which again would make a hell of a lot more sense if the cop survived or died in any meaningful way. Moving back to See No Evil 2. It's one of those things I hate about these kind of movies, is if you're gonna say all the corpses are going there, get a couple of them. Get a couple of people to sign waivers that you can, use dummies of them. And just show the dummies, or show their names, or show something. Something that lets us know that, yes, these people are still there. That these characters, although dead, are still somehow relevant. Because doing it this way, you're just making all of the people who died in the previous movie completely irrelevant, because you're not wanting to show them, you're not wanting to mention them, you just mention a number. Take the most grotesque one, like the girl who gets eaten by the dogs. Not a lot would be left of her, not a lot of identifying facial markers, most likely. She was hanging upside down, that's where they would have fit. Show that corpse. That would have been a great corpse. That's a great, horror movie corpse right there, is to show the aftermath of what these dogs did. 1, you really don't have to pay the actress for likeness rights, because it's not going to look like her anyways. And 2, it's a good moment of oh, look at this. This is what this dude did. This is this man. He bad man. You see one other corpse that one of the dudes is embalming, but it's definitely not one of the victims. Because 1, he has eyes, or his eyes are closed, but when Jacob removes the eyes, he leaves it, basically turns them into giant holes. And the dude's eyes are closed that's being embalmed. So it's why? Why? And again, why isn't one of these victims being embalmed? That's who he's working on. The morgue attendant who's doing it literally says, they got the 9 bodies in, I've got work to do. It tells you that's what he's working on. But no, I digress. I digress back to the movie. So, the 9 victims, the 8 victims, 7 victims, whatever. Jacob's victims plus himself are being brought into the morgue. Danielle Harris's character is celebrating her birthday. She was going to leave for the night to go celebrate with her friends, but decides to stay to help with the workload. After all the bodies are checked in, apparently, who knows how much of the other work is done, you find out that her brother, her best, and 3 of her friends have been brought into the morgue to celebrate her birthday by her co-workers. Like I said, I just finished watching this movie, so beat by beat is really simple right now. So they've been brought into the morgue to celebrate her birthday since she couldn't go out and meet them. Catherine Isabel plays her best friend. Her brother yells at the male morgue attendant because his sister likes him and he's not good enough for her. It's normal bullshit that's completely unnecessary because it doesn't go anywhere. As you will see, it doesn't go anywhere. So Jacob Goodnight, who had a pipe shoved through his skull, again, much like the bullet, entry point, exit point, went straight through his head. So now the man has had a bullet go through his head, straight through, and a pipe go through his head, straight through. Also, his heart was pierced by rusty metal. So the dude has, a pierced heart and tetanus. He rises from his morgue table as Catherine Isabel and her boyfriend bump uglies in the morgue because she has a weird obsession with serial killers and wants to make love to her boyfriend in the same room as one. Jacob wakes up, kills the boyfriend, or incapacitates the boyfriend. Catherine Isabel runs away, flees, and Jacob then finds the corpse of his mother. Because again, it's the only corpse that you get to connect it because you need that connection so you can show more flashbacks. This movie really loves using flashbacks from footage from this movie. When they're first hearing about it's the victims from this hotel, it shows a bunch of flashbacks, most of which aren't him killing people, just him abusing one of the people that survives. Why wouldn't you show the kills? Why wouldn't you show the people he killed? Again, these are the people who are coming. The three people who survived aren't going to the morgue. And then when he finds his mother, they then use more footage from this movie during the revelation scene that this woman is Jacob's mother. So they use a lot of stock footage from the previous film to close holes and gaps that people might have forgotten in the 8 years from See No Evil to See No Evil 2. Jacob then actually kills the boyfriend, shoves his body into a freezer drawer. He is found, they realize it's Jacob. Jacob kills a wheelchair-bound morgue attendant because somebody's gotta die, I guess. That's what happens. Jacob's weapon of choice in the first movie is a hook on a chain. It's a kunai with chain, basically. And he makes a new one and uses it once on this kill. And then he never touches it again. Like, you went to effort making this. You went to effort finding a chain and finding the right instrument to put at the end of it. And you use it once and go, meh! And he's not taking eyes anymore. Because he's having a crisis of conscience because he's taking the eyes because he believes that it's the windows to the soul, and that these people's souls are dark and dirty, and that they're sinful. And he's not taking their eyes anymore because he's having crisis of conscience. He's killing them, but he's leaving them their eyes. How many people do I have left? Five remaining survivors flee. He runs into a girl who was hitting on Danielle Harris's brother, kills her, and that's when he decides that yes, he can see the sin in their eyes, and he can see that she is a whore because she puts out, I don't know, that she's a whore and she deserves to die. She then dies. As our four remaining characters, that was 8, 4, remaining characters continue to flee. They get separated into Catherine Isabel and the male morgue attendant, and Danielle Harris and her brother, who are still arguing because he said shit to the guy she likes, and she ain't okay with that, and he wants to run and get the hell out of there, and she wants to stay and help get her friends out. She then makes a distraction to allow Catherine Isabel and the male morgue attendant to escape a room that Jacob is in. Jacob is wise to this and slashes Catherine Isabel's throat. And that's when we lose Catherine Isabel and we drop to 3 characters left in this movie. By the way, we're not even at the hour mark yet, and we've only got 3 characters left. They flee into a hallway where Jacob grabs the brother, and looks like he's gonna kill him. doesn't, ties him up downstairs in a basement that makes no sense in this building. Like, they're supposed to be the like storage facility, like where they keep the bodies, is supposed to be the lowest level of this building. So they have to take an elevator. And apparently there's a level lower. There's a sub-basement, I guess? I don't know. And it's really creepy, and for some reason the male morgue attendant has keys. I don't know. It's really screwy, and this entire scene doesn't amount to anything other than it flushes out the runtime of this movie. Because they hear the brother screaming, and they go after him into this creepy basement. And then they get to him, but it's all a setup for Jacob to shove a bone saw up from beneath the table and saw him open, so the brother is dead. They then flee, and they get away, and they get back up to one of the upper levels. The only thing that happens is the male morgue attendant gets stabbed in the shoulder, but otherwise, this is a completely, pointless couple of minutes of film here, because nothing happens. There is no development, there is no, intrigue, you know the brother's gonna die. You know it, you know that's what's happening, and it's not even a cool death, it's just a death. They then try to flee, but Jacob somehow is outside, because he's like Jason Voorhees and he can teleport on top of surviving everything. And he ain't done surviving things yet. They decide to flee out a side door where, as Daniel Harris is trying to unlock it, Jacob Goodnight shoves his bone saw knife, I think is what it is, through the door into her stomach, killing her. So that was actually a good use of a kill. Because you're set up to believe she is the final girl, she is the one who's going to stand up and beat Jacob. The fact that when she dies, it's actually, really interesting. They could have done it kind of like when they try to do it this way, where they set a character up, the cop, and then immediately kill them. But this was done so poorly, it doesn't work. In this one, it's done fairly well, that you really do believe she's the one that's going to survive until the end of the film, and then she dies with about 20 minutes left of this movie. I'm not joking. About 20 minutes left, she dies. About 15 to 20. But she's dead. The male morgue attendant flees. He gets into a hide-and-seek game with Jacob, and they fight, and he ends up stabbing him in the gut with the embalming fluid tube, because the embalming scene earlier was literally a setup to show that, we have embalming fluid. And he fills Jacob's body full of embalming fluid. His veins turn blue. His eye hole begins gushing. The eye hole changes throughout this movie for Jacob. He ends up, for some reason, getting a mask that was being worn by a burn victim who was brought in, a deceased burn victim who was brought in. He ends up wearing the mask, and the side of the face, it's his right eye that got stabbed out by the pipe. And every once in a while, it's his left eye that's covered, and his right eye's fine. It's actually pretty amusing when watching it. But he ends up gushing embalming fluid from his eye, and he drops dead. The male morgue attendant then leaves, gets in his car, drives away, and he's just like, it's in the lot. It's a driveway. It's not a parking lot. It's a driveway. And there's not even enough cars in this driveway to account for everyone that was in the building. Because you would need at least 3 cars for the employees, and you can get away with saying that the van carried the 4 guests, because there's a van there. They carried the 4 guests, and they all came in one vehicle. But you need 4 vehicles at minimum, and there's 3 maybe in this scene. He whips around and begins to leave, but there's a gate that's closed. I'm guessing Jacob did that, because I don't know why people who are there would have closed the gate. Plus, the last vehicle that went out would have been an ambulance, or the last vehicle that came in would have been what was carrying the friends, and I don't know who would have gotten out and closed the gate. But the gate is closed. He goes to open it, turns around, he sees his back door is open, because magic? He leaves the room. Jacob is in, walks to the door that Daniel Harris is lying dead at, and that Jacob burst through. Stops, looks at the body, walks outside to his car. Now it hints that Jacob got up, climbed out of a window, and crawled into the back of the car, and for somehow that was less than walking to the door. I don't know, but Jacob is still alive, and finally, and for the first time in this whole frickin' movie, he gouges somebody's eyes out, because that's how he kills the dude. He grabs him and shoves his fingers into his eyes. The movie ends. It still has like some scene. It does one of those like, oh, look at the victims, and it shows each person in the order that they died and how their body looks now and where it was left. And it shows the directors who show up as corpses at the beginning of the movie on slabs. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, See No Evil 2 is slightly better than the first one. It's not like leaps and bounds better. If I was doing an overall arcing of the rankings of how I feel about these WWE films I've watched, it would definitely go The Condemned, 12 Rounds 3, See No Evil 2, then See No Evil, and then all the crap would be below it. It's not bad. Again, Danielle Harris, Catherine Isabel, they give great performances. Glenn Jacobs requested dialogue in this one because he's silent through this entire movie. I think he says no. I think that's the only line of dialogue he says in the entire hour and a half of this movie. This one, he has multiple lines of dialogue, and it's not bad. Overall, as far as WWE Studio films, I know these are like two of the most well-reviewed ones on YouTube, and by well-reviewed, I don't mean like people really like them. I mean like a lot of people have reviewed them, but you know, I feel like you can't do a retrospective of WWE Studios without covering these movies. But yeah, so I mean, if you like horror films, I mean, definitely check out See No Evil and See No Evil 2. You'll enjoy them enough because you know they're not bad horror films. They're pretty average horror films. They're both should have been direct-to-video horror films. This one did get a theatrical release because WWE was releasing everything theatrically then. Alright, so that covers my See No Evil and See No Evil 2 review. Next week, we have our final week of WWE Studio films, and I wrap it up with two more films that are not connected in any way, shape, or form. That's right, we're talking Bending the Rules with the Rated R Superstar Edge, which I've never seen before and I don't have high hopes for, and we're talking The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, featuring Shawn Michaels. This one I've seen, and I actually like that movie. But we'll talk about those next week. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Leave a comment if you've got something to say. Maybe See No Evil is your absolute favorite horror movie ever, or it's your favorite WWE Studios film. You know, let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I am Martin Prevost. This is Rank the Movies. The Big Red Monster says, come back next week. I hate the fact his arm doesn't... It's supposed to be a choke slam, but he, like, wags his arm down, and, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to, be... Whoa! I think it's supposed to, be the opposite motion. Is he supposed to raise the arm for the choke slam? But, I don't know. I don't know if this toy's ever actually worked in the entire time I've owned it, or if I broke it at some point in my childhood, and cost Kane his actual proper choke slam. Anyways, I will see you next time. Have a good one. Stay gold.